look at the console line speed. Bits 5, 11, and 12 all affect the console line speed. So what does that look like in this case? Well, in this case, bits 5, 12, and 11. So let's bring up our text tool here, and let's see what those bits are. So by default, we're 2102. And so it's 0, 0, 0, or 0, 0, 1, 0, and then 0, 0, 0, 1, and then 0, 0, 0, 0, and then 0, 0, 1, 0. So we said bits what? Bits 5. So let's go ahead and figure out where bit 5 is. So that's bit 0, 1. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So by default, it's 0. Bit 12 now. So 0. Here, let's do it this way. So bit 5, like that. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bit 12 is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's also a 0. And then bit 11 is going to be one less than that. All right. So they are all 0 by default. So with them being all 0 by default, we can see that it says the speed now of the console port is 9600 baud. So if you want to manipulate that setting, you can manipulate it through the configuration register value by manipulating bits 5, 12, and 11. And you can see the different combinations here. So if you wanted to change it to 57,600, then you have to have a value of 110 based on bits 5, 12, and 11 in order to accomplish that. So it's rather interesting how you can manipulate these different bits and come up with different ways that your router will react during the boot process or boot sequence. And as a result of that, ultimately change the way it behaves. So again, all these values here, manipulating the various bits, don't need you to memorize this except for the primary ones we see right at the very top. These would be the most important that I would want you to remember. So with all that said, let's look at an example here of changing the configuration register value. I'm going to type in show version at the beginning here. And by typing in show version, I can see that my current configuration register value is 2102. What I'd like to do, though, is change this. So I'm going to change it now by going to global configuration mode and typing in config register, hex. Let's not forget hex in the front of that. 0x is the hex. It's telling my device this is a hex value we are now adding in here, which is 2101. If you don't put 0x, then it thinks it's decimal. And decimal 2101 is completely different than hex 2101. So don't forget the 0x. And then we have the command copy running config startup config because we have to save the configuration now. Let's look at a show version again. And show version says, well, our current configuration register value is this. However, the next time we reload the device, this is what it's going to show up as. So when we reload next time, we are going to base it on 2101. So since I changed it to 2101, how are we going to locate the operating system image? How are we going to locate the operating system image? Do you remember what 1 in the boot field represents? Well, let's go back and take a look at that. If it's 1 in the boot field, what does that represent? It says boot the first image in flash memory. All right, so parse flash, look through it. The very first operating system image you find, go ahead and load it. So that's what 2101 would do for us. If it was 2100, it would go into ROM monitor mode. And if it's 2102 through 2100F, then the result of that would be to look for boot system commands in NVRAM, use the boot system command. If they don't exist, then go ahead and load the first image in flash memory. So those are the values we have, 0, 1, and 2 through F.